everyone, I'm Anna Gutierrez. I work with Dillanos Coffee Roasters, and I thought it would be kind of handy to put together a nice little YouTube video to go over the pour-over process for my customers. A lot of people have been doing the Harios, doing a true brew, whatever process it might be for pour-over lately, and thought it would be helpful to show you what we've done and what we've tested and gotten the best results from the dissolved solids from the coffees. So I'm going to kind of walk you through everything. First I'm going to start off with a checklist of the items that you're going to need. First, you do need a pour-over system, whether it's a 2-group or a 4-group true brew, or even if it's just a single cup Hario or something like that that you can put on top of just an individual mug of coffee. Either one is fine. We just happen to have a 4-group one right here. You're also going to need a number 2 filter. This is smaller than the number 4 filter, so the number 2 is going to fit perfectly within the top portion of the dripper here. We're also going to need a timer to be able to time our bloom process. You'll need some type of container to be able to catch, whether it's a cup or an actual container itself, to catch the coffee that's finished extracting. This is the best kettle in my opinion as far as being able to control the flow of water that you're using. This is the Buono kettle, and I really like this. So you need some kind of pouring device that's going to really give you a good controlled pour throughout the process. The other thing you're going to need is a hot water supply. You want to have your hot water around 200 degrees, and then you'll also need a scale. The biggest thing that we need to make sure we're doing is measuring the coffee to the exact gram dosage that we're going to need every single time. So a really good accurate scale is great. The other thing you'll need is an industrial grinder that's going to allow you to set the coffee grind to the right consistency. You don't want to have the coffee ground too fine or too coarse, because that's going to extract the flavor incorrectly. So hopefully with all those items to start off with, you'll be able to begin the process. So first thing I'm going to do, I already took my filter. I just made sure that it's, just kind of laid nice and flat here, and I want to fit that really nice down inside of the dripper here. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and measure out my coffee. I'm going to use exactly 22 grams. I happen to be using a Tanzanian today. And just make sure you tear it out for the weight. So I'm going to weigh 22 grams of coffee. And as I was saying, different coffees are going to extract the flavor differently. This just happens to be with this coffee what we've taste tested, and get really accurate. A gram or two makes a huge difference. So we've got it exactly at 22 grams. My grind setting that I'm going to have it set on is for a Melita. So it's going to be a little bit more coarse than espresso, but also a little bit more fine than your drip coffee. So make sure this is cleared out really well. Make sure you get every last little bit of those grinds in there. One really important thing to know is that you really need to make sure that you're grinding fresh, basically, within minutes before brewing for a pour-over, because it's going to really allow that coffee to open up. Pre-wet my filter. There have been a lot of people that ask questions about why do you need to pre-wet the filter. I don't. These people do. For me personally, I pre-wet the filter because I feel like if it already has moisture in the filter, when I have my dose of coffee in there and I begin the brewing process, the water is not going to be pulled to the outside of the filter and absorbed into it. It's going to allow it to really just kind of focus on extracting through the coffee properly. Ultimately, for everybody, it comes down to taste, and so with our method and how it's extracted the flavors, we find that it extracts properly when we do pre-wet the filter. But I guess to each their own in this situation, and you can kind of play around with tasting it and decide what you want to do. So I'm just going to make sure that this is not right underneath my dripper here. I'm going to just pour some hot water through here, just let it get my entire filter wet. That's not a very calculated kind of thing. There's no need for it to be. Just make sure that it gets wet enough so that the entire filter is, saturated. I'm going to get my excess water out of here. Now, depending on what's easiest for you on the way to measure your water amount, a lot of times I understand that people will fill the kettles up to a certain amount and they just kind of pour and go off of their eyesight of knowing when they have enough water. I'm a little bit more of a calculated person. I like to really make sure that my water volume is consistent every single time. So what I'm actually going to do is right on here, I'm going to be brewing for a 12-ounce cup of coffee, and you're going to actually use 14 ounces of water for this. About 2 ounces of that water is going to still stay in those grinds. So right about at this level right here is going to be at 14 ounces of water. So this is a really handy little Hario container. Another thing that some people will do is you can actually take something maybe on the inside of your kettle and kind of like scrape the metal or something and you know, etch it in there so you know what volume of water you need to have the level at for a different size drink. So that's another way you can kind of get around that. All right, so I'm ready to go. I have my coffee ground, my water is ready, I have my filter pre-wet, and this is my container that's going to hold my coffee. Now I'm going to just go ahead and put my grinds in here. Make sure you get all of them in there. There we go. I like to make sure things are also kind of nice and level. So this first step is called the bloom. I'm going to use as little water as possible, trying to get as much of my grinds wet as possible. The key to this is that you don't want to actually begin the extraction process. So you don't want to see any lighter colors coming from the coffee showing that it's beginning to extract the flavor. Right now you want it to just kind of stay nice and dark, just getting a little bit of dribbles of water as quickly as possible, as little water as possible. Put it on here really quickly. All right, and this is the time I'm going to start my timer. And this is the bloom process. I let it bloom for 30 seconds. It's really important to make sure that you do have a timer for this because there's quite a range in bloom time that people will do. We just find that 30 seconds works best for us. And this is a really great opportunity, especially if you're doing this for a customer, to let them kind of get their nose down in there and get the aroma off of the coffee, because this is where it really is kind of waking up. Sometimes you'll even kind of notice that the coffee is bubbling a little bit, so it's going to kind of expand up, and this is just really a pre-infusion, getting the grinds all wet and ready to go and set for extraction. All right, we're at 30 seconds. So I'm going to start a little bit higher up for my beginning process of brewing, and you're going to work your way around in a circular motion, always going in the same direction. I work my circle outside, and then I work it towards the center. And then keep going back and forth on doing this, working this towards the outside, kind of a corkscrew, and then back towards the center. The key in the way that we brew is to make sure that you constantly have a flow of water. Don't go to the entire outside edge because you don't want to use that flow of water to really push those grinds off the outside. But I kind of keep going around in the circular motion and watch the coloring of the extraction. I want to really see that there aren't any areas that are really much lighter than others, because that's going to mean that those areas are more extracted than others. So keep a nice, slow, steady flow the entire time. As long as you have this really controlled, you should be pouring through the whole process and not getting to a point where you're actually going to overflow your water from your filter. If you're noticing that you are doing that, you just need to slow down the stream of your pour. So it's just more of a controlled, focused motion. So I've already finished. Again, like I said, you want to make sure that you don't get to a point where it actually like overflows out of the filter or anything like that. This is where we just have to be nice and patient. Never take away your container before it's totally finished the brewing process, because there's still flavor components in that last little bit that you want to make sure that you're getting from the coffee. It's what's going to, you know, the right ratio of water to coffee is going to have a huge effect on the end cut and what your final results are going to be. A good sign is to have some of the grinds kind of sticking to the outside edge of your filter here. And now is the fun part, where we get to taste test our coffee, make sure it's extracted properly. And there are a couple different methods with how you can actually serve this coffee. If you're taste testing with customers, like I said, this is going to brew a 12-ounce cup of coffee, but you can also split it up and do 2 6-ounce cups, or if you're doing a tasting or something, you know, you can have a couple 2-ounce cups for people to try. But the best thing that I love about a pour-over process is that the finish in the cup is just so unique and clean and different. It gives you just not as much sediment, and I just noticed that as opposed to a French press or something, it just allows me to really get to the flavor characteristics of the coffee. I like it. It's nice and clean on your palate, and you can really enjoy this kind of coffee all day. So happy brewing. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to email me at annag@dillanos.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions, take suggestions, and Enjoy!